Welcome to the next person in our timeline from the exile to Jesus, and that would be Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon, and here we go to our chart and we can see the timeline where he reigned from Jehoiakim, the son of Jehoiahaz, and then to, he was a brother of Jehoiahaz, son of Josiah, reigned through Jehoiachin 3 months and changed the king over to Zedekiah, his uncle, and Jeremiah was during this period of time, and so was Daniel. But Jeremiah did most of the writing, talking about the government and the royalty and the priesthood. Daniel was a young man. He ended up going into captivity during this period of time with all the Jews, went into Babylon. And then Daniel went on through Gedaliah, who was made governor by Nebuchadnezzar, and then the end of pretty much of Jeremiah's dialogues. And it continues then with Ezekiel, and Ezekiel went down along with into Nebuchadnezzar. But Daniel then picked up with most of Nebuchadnezzar's reign until Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's son, appears in Daniel 5, 7, and 8. We've already went through Daniel, so we don't have to go through that again. Babylon was a city-state. It was in Mesopotamia, and here it is down here, Babylon. And Assyria was up in this area, and it went all the way across, and it was ruled for a couple hundreds of years, from 911 to 609, 300 years. But down in Babylon, the king Hammurabi, in 1792, almost 800 or 900 years before, wrote a famous code called the Code of Hammurabi. It was a legal text in the language of the places down there of Akkadian. But it wasn't until much, much later when Nebuchadnezzar appears. It's called the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the New Babylonian Empire. Babylon itself was a small city. It was 4 square miles, and the Euphrates River ran through it. Here's a map. It was famous for the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. They believe it might have been the first city in history, at least in the West, to have reached over 200,000 people in population. And today the ruins are about 53 miles south of Baghdad. There was a famous gate called the Ishtar Gate, which is now in Germany, in Berlin, at the museum, the Pergamum Museum. Now, this is the Babylon that Nebuchadnezzar ruled. Nebuchadnezzar himself reigned from 604 to 562, and he died in Babylon. Nabucodonosor is the Greek spelling. Nabucodonosor, I think is how it's pronounced. And the empire lasted from 609 to 539, a little bit longer because of Nebuchadnezzar's sons, so it went 70 years as far as the reign of the empire. Not very long in history, way overemphasized because the Assyrian empire was way, way bigger, much broader and powerful, but the Assyrians, which were up in Nineveh in the northern part of the Mesopotamian river, fought with the Babylonians in around 600, 609, and the Assyrians joined up with the Egyptians who came up to battle the Babylonians with the Medes. In the Battle of Carchemish, a famous battle occurred in 605. The Assyrians and the Egyptians were defeated. And then Nebuchadnezzar's army went down through Israel, down to Ashkelon, which is right north of the Gaza Strip, which is famous today. He conquered Ashkelon, and then he went in to Egypt. And then he came back in 598. He captured Jerusalem during Jehoiakim's reign, and then sieged Jerusalem later in 587. And second time he sieged Jerusalem, and he took Zedekiah back to Babylon, where he died. And then after this, Nebuchadnezzar went up into Lebanon, and he did a siege of the city of Tyre, where he conquered it. So this is the history of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, what does the Bible have to say about this ruler? And then we'll go through this list here, and it says, Jeremiah 46:2, and came to pass the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet against all nations, against Egypt, against the force of Pharaoh, and Necho, king of Egypt, who was at the river Euphrates in Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, struck, which was in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah. So Jeremiah mentions that battle. And the battle was fought, as I mentioned, in 605 with the Medes and so forth. The first mention of Nebuchadnezzar is in 2 Chronicles 36:6. It says, and Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, ascended against him, Jehoiakim, and bound him in brass shackles, and took him into Babylon. Then in Jeremiah 46:13 says, what the Lord spoke by the hand of Jeremiah the prophet concerning the coming of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to smite the land of Egypt, which he did, and that would have been around 601 before he came and took Zedekiah. And then in 2 Chronicles 36:12 and 13, and he, Zedekiah, did not feel shame from in front of Jeremiah the prophet, and Zedekiah was set up as king by Nebuchadnezzar. His brother, who was ruling, Jehoiahaz, was taken by Pharaoh Necho into Egypt. And from out of the mouth of the Lord, in the annulling of the things which King Nebuchadnezzar, in which he bound him by an oath according to God, that Zedekiah was to tax the people and bring the money to Babylon. He didn't do it. And then in Jeremiah 35:11, it's concerning Nebuchadnezzar's entrance into Jerusalem, all about it. Jeremiah 37:1, and Zedekiah, son of Josiah, reigned instead of Coniah, who was Jehoiachin, the son of Jehoiakim, grandson of Josiah, King Josiah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, gave reign to reign in the land of Judah. He only reigned for 3 months, and he didn't do the right thing. And after Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, resettled Jeconiah, which is another name for Jehoiachin, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and the rulers and the craftsmen and the prisoners from out of Jerusalem, he led them into Babylon. So these people. Now, it wasn't all of the people, but quite a few, mainly the wealthy and famous, well-known. In Jeremiah 39:1, it continues, and it came to pass in the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and all his force against Jerusalem, and assaulted it. And in the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, 9th of the month, the city was broken asunder. Jeremiah 39:5, and they led him, Zedekiah, to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Riblah, the city in the land of Hamath, which is up by Lebanon, where he was after fighting the battle of Carchemish. And Jeremiah 43:9-10, it continues and says, God says to Jeremiah, take to yourself great stones, and hide them in the thresholds in the gate of the residence of Pharaoh Tophanes, because the Jews, many of them fled after they killed Gedaliah, the governor, who replaced Zedekiah. And so they went to Tophanes, even though Jeremiah told them that God told them not to do that. They did. So here God is telling him to take these stones, put them in Egypt, in Tophanes, in front of the eyes of the men of Judah, the ones that fled there. And you shall say, thus said the Lord of the forces, the God of Israel, behold, I send for and I will bring Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my bondman, and he shall put his throne upon these stones which you hid, and he shall lift the shields upon them. And apparently that's what happened when Nebuchadnezzar went into Egypt. And then Jeremiah 44:30 says, thus said the Lord, behold, I give Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, into the hands of his enemy, and into the hands of the ones seeking his life, as I have given Zedekiah, king of Judah, into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, his enemy, and the one seeking his life. Now, Hophra was given it to hands of his enemies. It doesn't say Nebuchadnezzar, because it wasn't believed that Nebuchadnezzar came at that time. And Jeremiah 52:4, it continues, and it came to pass in the 9th year of his kingdom, in the 10th month, on the 10th of the month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came and all his force against Jerusalem, and they encamped by it, and they built against it a rampart round about. And so this was the second time around 587. And this is then Jeremiah 52:28-29. This is the people whom Nebuchadnezzar transferred in the 7th year of Jews, 3,023. In the 3rd and 20th year of Nebuchadnezzar, the chief guard transferred to the Jews 745 souls. And then in Jeremiah 51:34-37, Babylon will be going into extinction because of what Nebuchadnezzar did, is what God tells Jeremiah. And concerning a prophecy of Nebuchadnezzar, it talks about that in Jeremiah 34:1-7. We're not going to go through all of these things. A little bit too much for just the timeline. In Daniel 2:28, in 2:46 of Daniel, it says, then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and did obeisance to Daniel, in referencing what Nebuchadnezzar did, that Daniel proved that he was a person that could explain dreams, interpret dreams. And then the resettlement of the Jews to Babylon is mentioned in Amos 2:1, Nehemiah 7:6, and then Nebuchadnezzar's image of gold in Daniel 3:1 to I'm not sure what that is. Nebuchadnezzar's furnace of fire in Daniel 3:8-30, and then Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the great tree in Daniel 4:1-37. You can read all of those if you'd like. And then against Tyre, it says in Ezekiel 26:7, so now we're in Ezekiel, for thus says Adonai the Lord, behold, I bring against you, O Sor, which is Tyre, the city up in Lebanon, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon from the north. He is king of kings, with horses and chariots and horsemen, and a gathering of many nations exceedingly. And then Ezekiel 29:17-21, more about his attacking Tyre. And then against Egypt in Ezekiel 30:10, it says, and I will destroy the multitude of the Egyptians by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Evil Merodach was another king. Only mentions him in one place in Jeremiah 52:31. And it says, and it came to pass in the 30th and 7th year of the resettling of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 5th and 20th day of the month, evil Merodach, king of Babylon, took, in the year in which he took reign, the head of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and led him from out of the house of which he was guarded, and put him above all the other kings. That was the only mention of this evil Merodach. Next will be Belshazzar, Baltasar, and Nebuchadnezzar's son. We'll go into that into our next video in the timeline. Hope you join us. Till then, God bless.